already recorded my reactions to this trailer, but it wasn't anything special. I decided it'd probably be better to do a kind of trailer analysis after having had about 20 minutes to mill about and think about it. So this is the actual Kislev trailer, it seems. We already had that previous trailer, Fire something or other. That seemed to have just been kind of the intended gameplay reveal trailer, or at least like in-game footage trailer, to go with the Brass Citadel battle we got to see. But it got leaked a day ahead, so I guess that changed things. This is the proper Kislev trailer right here. And when I was watching it the first time, I was just kind of confused, and I didn't have many good reactions except for one unit, and I decided, just torch that video. Probably get more content from this. So, let's go ahead and kickstart it. So we got Katarin doing pretty great narration here, and immediately we've got a different set of Tsar's Guard than we did in the Battle of the Brass Citadel. They're carrying axes instead of swords. Exciting.
Behold, the unyielding motherland.
Okay, here we go. It's a Tsar's Guard with a pistol. If this were any race other than Kislev, I would say this is probably just a unit that only exists in cinematics. Well, Creative Assembly aren't that big of liars. But the kicker is, Kislev is the race of hybrid infantry. So Tsar's Guard with pistols makes perfect sense, because they've also got Kossars with bows and axes, Streltsies with guns that are axes, and Ice Guard with bows and polearms or dual swords, I believe. Either which way, this is going to be a elite defensive infantry with a weak, short-ranged, but still a missile attack, which very much kind of reminds me of Vampire Coast deckhands with pistols. Though obviously deckhands with pistols way cheaper and are only so defensive because of their ridiculous health pool. These guys are going to be so defensive because they'll probably have really, really high melee defense and armor. So a bit of a different story there, I guess. But still, this is probably going to be a lot like them, where when you get deckhands with pistols, your whole ordeal is you want them to just fire off a couple shots as the opponent charges in, and then they get stuck in for melee, right? It's probably going to be the same deal here.
Through the teachings of
Streltsy,
the great orthodoxy,
Kossars with spears.
world's end is kept at
Katarin says the teachings of the great orthodoxy. I don't think that was a thing in the original Realm of the Ice Queen role-playing book, which is the source for the majority of Kislev lore. Obviously, there's still plenty of room to expand for Kislev lore, and I'm sure Games Workshop's going to want to overhaul them to make them a more marketable race, because the original Kislev was, for one thing, a lot more mundane, so they've had to introduce a lot more fantastical elements. But also a lot of it boiled down to Kislev is a rough place. They are very friendly towards strangers. They're very rough, tough, sort of tumble folk. There's an ethnic divide between the Gospodars and Ungals. They've got several gods, but they're not really too dogmatic about them. And that was pretty much the extent of the broad width of Kislev lore. Obviously there's more to it than that, but the orthodoxy here, they seem to be more directly just straight going for this is medieval Russia. As opposed to before, where Kislev was a bit more Poland than it was Russia. So I guess it's kind of more of an even mix now. And I can see why they did it, because Orthodox patriarchs have a certain look to them. And Warhammer Fantasy loves to take certain real-life looks and over-exaggerate them. You can see that, of course, with, let's say, war priests, right? War priests look like Catholic monks and friars gone absolutely batshit. War priests of the Empire, of course. So, introducing Orthodox patriarchs like that is interesting, and it's going to be curious to see how much of an effect it has on Kislev's lore and the way it handles religion. Particularly given that it didn't seem like there was too much of an actual, like, orthodoxy to Ursun and his worship in the Realm of the Ice Queen lore book. So, we'll see. Role-playing book, whatever.
our mothers and fathers.
This guy. Okay, this guy's interesting. This Grigori Rasputin looking motherfucker. So, we've already seen the Patriarch in the Battle of the Brass Citadel, little gameplay thing. And I could not tell if he was supposed to be a lord or a hero. The fact that he was getting put in the same army as Katarin would imply that he's a hero, but not necessarily. After all, if you have several armies taking part in the same battle, then you'll have multiple lords. Oh, excuse me. He looked very elaborate for a hero to me. And the fact that you got to ride a warbearer, usually heroes don't get access to monstrous mounts. With the exception of stuff like the Glade Captain for... Oh, I'm burping up a storm here. With the exceptions of stuff like the Glade Captain for the Wood Elves, the Amber Wizard for the Empire, Fire Mages for the High Elves. So, I think this guy has a decent shot. This is a hero level support guy. He could be the Lord level, though. Actually, now that I look at it... Hang on. What's that he got in his hand? He's got a fire mace of some kind. I don't remember, did the Patriarch during the Battle of the Brass Citadel have a fire mace or something like that? I feel like he had some kind of magic shit going on, but he didn't have this banner here. And that banner there, I'm really curious. There's another theory I saw rolling around. The Patriarch during the Battle of the Brass Citadel only had access to a spell or a support ability. It's spells. Even the original Warhammer Fantasy lore treated the godly guys' miracles as being spells. But he had a spell for Ursun and a spell for Salyak, which those are two pretty important gods for Kislev, but it's also leaving out two other major gods for Kislev, which are Daj and Tor. So they could have divided it so that now they have two patriarchs with two lores, I guess, with one patriarch getting the lore of Ursun and Salyak, and the other one getting the lore of Daj and Tor, with the one who's devoted to Daj and Tor looking a bit more wild, as we can see. But it'd be really weird for them to go to the trouble of making separate animation sets for the two of them. I mean, having the one who worships Tor be a bit more wild would make sense, because Tor, we know very little about Tor, because he was very clearly the least prioritized of the Kislevite gods. But he did seem a bit crazy, so I guess we'll see. Fascinated by him. For what it's worth, I do want to go ahead and predict that Thursday this week, I expect. I'm predicting here. I have no evidence to go off of, but I am predicting we'll see the Kislev roster reveal. Grave Assembly will put up the full roster list on their blog. And then next week, Tuesday of next week, we'll probably see the Khorne trailer, if there's going to be a Khorne trailer. And then Thursday of that week, we'll see the Khorne roster reveal. Here we go, the snow leopard. I'm not sure what the point of this thing is, but I'm not sure what it's supposed to fill in the roster, honestly, other than maybe just... Not that Kislev's even really lacking light cavalry equivalents. And here, let me go ahead and stop at a good shot for this lady. Oh, yeah, let's cover up her face. Oh, I'm not going to get a good shot of her, am I? Yeah, that works. So that's an Ice Witch or Frost Maiden, so... We did hear, like, Frankie Boyle mention her during the Brass Citadel thing. But that's going to be the Lord or Hero level Ice Caster. Or Tempest Caster? I don't know. And the power of winter itself. There. That's an interesting animation. That's an awesome animation. I've seen some people talk about how the Bear Riders seem to look different every time we see them, and yeah, that one's not got the wings. Okay, these things. So, this was the one good reaction I got during my attempt at recording a trailer reaction, as it were. These things. Yeah, I just laughed when I saw these things, because, for one thing, the War Wagon was always a classic, goofy Warhammer unit. Hang on, there we go. And I'm glad to see them. I was absolutely delighted when they added the War Wagon to the Empire, and I'm glad Kislev is getting the one as well. It is a bit of a surprise, because these look entirely different than the War Wagon that Kislev got in Warmaster, I think? I don't know if Kislev ever got a War Wagon in the Warhammer Fantasy Battles proper. Excuse me. My Chinese is coming back hard. The thing here, like, the War Wagon on Warmaster, I believe, the miniature for the War Wagon on Warmaster looked a bit more like what you'd imagine a War Wagon to look like. I think the real-life War Wagons, for what limited use they got, looked the same, where it was actually a wagon on wheels with 6 dudes inside carrying rifles. And now they've changed it to a bear-drawn ice sled, which I am fine with. I like the Kislev ice sleds. I know there are some people who are mad about them. For me, like, Kislev getting stuff enchanted with ice makes sense, because Katarin has her ice palace that she built, and it stayed that way. So it makes sense to me that the other ice witches can pull off making similar kind of pieces of gear. But yeah, I'm enjoying. I like this. It's a bit more characterful for Kislev, because the question was, how are they going to make Kislev's war wagons unique when the Empire also gets war wagons, right? And I think this is a pretty good way of handling it. I also like that it's drawn by bears, so it's gonna probably be a better chariot than the war wagon for the Empire is, and that's. I think the Empire war wagon is an underrated chariot, but that's a controversial opinion.
Join us!
With that said, I do find it really fucking funny that they've got these ice sled war wagons, which, for one thing, the ice sled on the little Grom we saw during the Battle of the Brass Citadel were controversial enough, at least with some people. It's definitely an overblown controversy on certain communities, but it's the fact that they took that relatively controversial thing and put it on the War Wagon, a unit which is already probably considered by a lot of people to be the Empire's worst unit. I find that really funny. With that said, I'm happy with it because I like the Ice Wagon and I like the ice sleds.
Yourself to the ice court! Defend the legacy of Kislev!
Yeah, there we go. That's the trailer. I believe for just a split second that... Oh, well, let me go ahead and let it finish with the tagline. Oh, yeah, conquer your demons. There we go. I believe at one point there... Let me actually go back. It's like when you see the bear. Hang on. There is a point where you can see a... Ah, here we go. You can see 2 Khorne Marauders. And... Whoops. I'm going to go ahead and... go back a little bit, then let's mute the audio first, and then let's set playback speed to 0.25. And we're going to go ahead and stop once we actually see these Khorne Marauders, because we've not actually seen Khorne Marauders yet. The Battle of the Brass Citadel seemed to use mostly Khorne's really elite top-level units. Yeah, there we go, there's one guy. So Khorne is probably going to get Marauders. I'm going to be really happy with that, because Khorne Marauders, at least in Age of Sigmar, look fucking awesome. I'm curious to see what the Marauders of the other Chaos Gods are going to look like, though. Definitely, I'm curious to see what the Slaanesh Marauders are going to look like, because they're going off the Age of Sigmar miniature designs, which I think is a smart choice, because Age of Sigmar has fantastic miniatures. It's the best thing about Age of Sigmar. But Slaanesh Marauders in Age of Sigmar are really skinny and lithe, and they pack bows and arrows. And that's not what Marauders look like in Total War Warhammer 1 or 2. That isn't even what these Marauders look like, though you can always expect Khorne dudes to be buff. But I am excited to see more of Khorne, honestly. I'm already over the moon pretty well about what we've seen of Kislev, which makes me excited, because Kislev wasn't one I was actually too terribly excited for. I liked Kislev. I liked the idea of Kislev, but I was more fascinated by Kislev as a gameplay concept than visually speaking or lore-wise speaking, but I'm actually really happy with what we've got. Khorne was definitely the race I was least excited for in Warhammer 3. Khorne is just not as interesting to me as the other demons, and he's definitely less interesting than Cathay. Though Cathay exists as ideas in our heads at the moment, so I guess Cathay is as interesting as you want them to be. But I'm actually starting to get pretty interested in Khorne just because of how much potential there is for new stuff. And with this entire game, there is so much just new content that it's becoming pretty well impossible to predict. I mean, the fact that we've already seen pretty well every single Kislev unit that was predicted. The only predicted Kislev unit we haven't seen yet are the Ungol Horse Archers, really. And maybe, like, Warbirds, because a lot of people think that, like, the Hawks of Miska, or whatever, from the Realm of the Ice Queen will be a unit, just because they were there in the Kislev Reborn mod. I don't know. I mean, we've already seen plenty of ice animals for Kislev, so it's not impossible, I guess. But for Khorne, we've also already seen most of the Khorne units that were expected. There's a couple that are missing. There's no Slaughter Brute, no Juggernaut Chariot, though I think the Juggernaut Chariot got removed in, like, 6th edition or something. I can't keep it straight. So, with Khorne, like, a lot of what we're going to be seeing I believe Cody Bonds or one of the other YouTubers who got a sneak peek there said, or maybe he interviewed a CA dev, and the CA dev said that we've only seen about a third of the Khorne roster, which makes sense. But I am definitely fascinated to see that. And I'm definitely going to be fascinated to see the actual proper Kislev roster reveal, because Tsar Guard with pistols is already a weird enough choice. I feel like we're going to see more and more weird unit variations with Kislev's roster. Also, the fact that they've specifically left out the Ungol Horse Archers for everything so far, when on the tabletop that was one of the few classic units Kislev had, is a bit strange. It makes me wonder if they are deliberately reserving all Ungol units for the first Lord pack. In which case, I guess that would make sense, because my own prediction was that the launch Legendary Lords for Total War Warhammer 3 Kislev would be Katarin and Boris, both of whom are Gospodar. So I guess it would kind of make sense to hang back until we get Nivena or the Baba Yaga for the first Lord pack, and with them we get the rest of the Ungol units. I was actually saying during that first recording that I didn't think I'd be doing a video whenever they release the full roster, but I might actually change that plan. We'll see. And I guess with that, I'll go ahead and say I'll see you guys later. Hope you enjoyed the video.